What is going on, Facebook world? We are now live. I'm Dr. David Hausmann with Stronghold Health. I want to take a minute and thank you guys for joining us tonight for our holiday-based webinar slash workshop. We've been, I guess, forced to go a little bit more virtual now with coronavirus and everything else that's going on. But also, it kind of makes it a little bit more convenient. You can sit right at home. You don't have to worry about going out to an in-office event or a workshop. And so with that being said, we can still get a lot of the really good information out your way. So we're going to wait a second here just to see who joins us on Facebook. And while that's going on, and if you are already on here watching with me, I just want to ask you for your support, your help. Go ahead and hit the share button, post this to your Facebook wall, create a watch party, see if you can have some friends join in and watch with you, hit the like button, and show us a little bit of love. So with that being said, Oh Holy Hormones is my fun little play on holidays, obviously. Oh Holy Night, I believe, is the song. But then also hormones for me, I like to have fun with any of the content that we go through with patients and with clients virtually. And comic books, I feel like, are a really fun theme. So this really stems from a previous workshop that I had done called Holy Hormones. And it's like that whole 1950s style themed, like Batman and Robin and other comic books that had the fancy fun colors and the wham, zam, and pop and pow. Anyway, with that being said, Oh Holy Hormones, we'll go ahead and dive in. We'll get started. So again, hit the like button, hit the share button, post this to your Facebook wall, and thanks for helping us out. So hormones is a vast topic, and with hormones can be very difficult. Hormones interchangeable with the word endocrine. So if you hear me say the word endocrine, I'm talking about hormone systems in your body. But your endocrine system or your hormones is very much like the analogy of a symphony. You have multiple different instruments. They're all playing kind of in unison. And ideally, the perfect world is they all play in tune, they all play in harmony, they all play together, and they create this amazing, beautiful sound. That's how our body's designed. But unfortunately, there are key disruptors that can take place in our body and in our lives that can throw our hormone balance out of check. And very much like the symphony analogy, you could be having multiple different instruments that are playing all at the same time. But one of those instruments might be a little bit out of tune or might be like majorly out of tune. And unfortunately, if it's majorly out of tune, it's not in balance. It's playing with all the other instruments kind of playing at the same time in unison. It makes it difficult to figure out, well, which one of those instruments is actually not playing in tune, which is the one that's out of tune. Is it the saxophone? Is it the acoustic guitar? Is it, I don't even know what other instruments are in there, but is it one of those instruments? And without being able to selectively take one instrument at a time, have that instrument play outside of and away from the rest of the orchestra, it becomes difficult to figure out which one's out of tune. And that's where hormone testing and being very specific with the type of testing that you're doing comes into play. And you'll hear me mention that a little bit later on. But with hormone testing, that's going to be a key thing to do if you do suspect your body has some sort of major hormone imbalance, or if you already know that thyroid issues are a problem that runs in your family. If you've been told, like my wife, low progesterone levels, like when she was pregnant with her son, these are indicators, and there's other indicators and symptoms that you might have hormone imbalance that are taking place in the body. So when it comes down to it, the endocrine system is ultimately controlled by the brain. So the nervous system is the key master control system in the body. It's like this guy right here, the conductor of the orchestra. He's the one that's calling the shots. He's telling which instruments to play, which ones not to play. But you could have a rogue instrument or a rogue musician in the pit that's out to sabotage the rest of the sound. And the conductor could say, I want you to go ahead and play, but the person on the other side in the wrong section of instruments could also then start playing and be rebellious. And sometimes that can happen with our hormones as well. So anyway, long story short, hormones are very, very complex system in the body. The endocrine system and the balance of the endocrine system is key and important to overall health and proper function for our bodies. So the HPA axis is something that is a highly studied I don't know what the right word for this is, but mechanism or system in the body. And it all really starts with the hypothalamus, which is a deep part of the brain. Hypothalamus releases GnRH, which is a signal to your pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, which again is seated like in the Salzerska, really well protected part of the deep center part of your brain, protected by your skull. The pituitary gland, though, then releases hormones that tell your thyroid how to work. They tell, not necessarily tell your thyroid how to work, but tell your thyroid how much function to exert. But then they also send signals down to your adrenal cortex or your adrenal glands on top of your kidneys. It tells your thymus to release hormones, which would be growth hormones and TSH and thyrosin and other types of hormones. But your pituitary gland also is going to tell your gonads or sex hormone function how to essentially work. Gonads are, for men, obviously, testicles, for female, uterus and ovaries. So the sex organs are going to be important for male and female hormone balance taking place in the body. So long story short, some of the key players when it comes to hormones, these are the common ones that a lot of people end up having issues with: estrogen, testosterone, thyroid function, and then cortisol levels with your adrenal glands. That's your stress hormone. So estrogen in females is honestly responsible for growing, maturing, uterine lining during menstrual cycle. It's also, in men, estrogen actually plays a key role. So I don't think a lot of us guys give credence to estrogen, but it's important. We have small amounts of estrogen, but we're seeing increasing estrogen levels take place in the past couple of years here with men. And it's problematic because excess estrogen is obviously going to then decrease testosterone. So that's the big problem globally with estrogen levels for us as guys, is if we shift towards an estrogen dominance, it decreases testosterone. And older gentlemen will tell you decreased, and younger gentlemen, I assume as well, will be testament to decreased testosterone is no bueno. So more men ever than I would say in the past, maybe it's from marketing or maybe it's not, are complaining about low T levels, and you'll see commercials all over for low T levels. Estrogen levels are also in decline in women that are perimenopausal naturally. And let's see, anything else I want to say about this? We're talking thyroid and cortisol. There's a growing body of evidence that now shows a real problem with sex hormones is that too much estrogen is the underlying problem. So estrogen dominance between both men and women has been linked to hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings. In women, endometriosis, fibroids, and weight gain. In men, estrogen dominance is decreasing testosterone. It's causing depression, it's causing loss of muscle mass, and decreased sex drive. Then the other one here is cortisol. So cortisol comes from our adrenal glands. It's also known as our fight or flight hormones. So when we go through a stress response, your cortisol releases from the adrenals, and it causes a whole cascade response of adrenaline, norepinephrine, so on and so forth. I did an entire workshop previously on the stress response and cortisol. But third hormone is going to be thyroid, and thyroid hormone's huge right now. Thyroid hormone is responsible for regulating metabolism, how much energy we burn, how many calories we burn. It's going to give us energy, help us keep thin. The most common thyroid dysfunction is called hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, and it's an outcome of overstressed thyroid gland that eventually stops making enough thyroid hormone for our body. So it's when our thyroid can burn out, and we can see a similar type of thing that can take place with your adrenal glands. But for thyroid burnout, hypothyroidism, symptoms can be anxiety, irritability, depression, brain fog, weight gain, fatigue, can be debilitating. So anybody that's been suffering from thyroid issues can attest to that. Now, this entire axis has multiple different problems, or can have multiple different problems in the pathway. So without getting too detailed into this, because it varies. Literally, this will vary for every single person. No two people are the same. Lots of people will be similar with the same type of pathway that might be affected, but how it's affected does depend on your specific lifestyle, what types of foods that you're eating, and then a genetic predisposition as well, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But the HPA axis can shift and have a predominance towards one specific pathway. This one is not a cortisol steal, but it's a certain type of steal that's taken place. I can't ever say the pregna word, but it's not in here. It's precursor to progesterone. But anyway, long story short, this just give you an example of one specific type of pathway that can happen where your body can have a higher reliance on the progesterone. Progesterone can then cause cortisol to release in higher amounts, and then when the cortisol releases in higher amounts, it actually inhibits your hypothalamus from talking to your pituitary gland from producing luteinizing hormone from talking to your ovaries for a female, and therefore your body will shut off the pathway, or can shut off the pathway going to producing estrogen. Long story short, not good, but this is just one type of pathway that can be a reality for us, not for me because I'm a guy, but for females, if your test result comes back and actually shows that. And I will say this, the only way to really, really know if this process is taking place is to test it. So outside of testing it, I can say with a high degree of certainty that a majority of patients that I've been working with over the past 6 years, when it comes to hormone testing, have been expressing some form of estrogen dominance. Body's producing too much estrogen, or the body's not producing enough estrogen at all, and you have other things that are causing your body to think that it's producing too much estrogen. But symptoms of estrogen dominance, raise your hand if you can attest to this. By the way, if you know someone that's dealing with potential estrogen dominance problems or thyroid problems, hit the share button, hit the like button, go ahead and tag them in the comment section down below so that they can get this information. Symptoms of estrogen dominance: irritability, anxiety, hot flashes, insomnia, trouble sleeping at night, weight gain, unexplained weight gain as well, migraines, and depression. So just some of them, it's not all of them, but certainly something to be thinking about. We're going to talk about estrogen dominance here in just a second, but I want to hit on one very important point. Estrogen dominance is not a female-associated only problem. It is a guy, is a male, it is a female problem, but what's strikingly alarming recently is that it's actually a kid problem as well.
Our children are just growing up so fast these days. You hear people say that all the time. Tonight, we investigate a medical condition robbing our children of their innocence and their childhood. It's called precocious puberty, baffling parents and to some degree, the medical community. We need to warn you of mature subject matter and scenes in this story that may not be suitable for all viewers. A precious baby girl delivered on Christmas Day. Milan, the firstborn, grew up surrounded by her loving family. Is this from school today?
Yeah.
Now 5, she is a proud big sister, likes showing off her pretty pink room, princesses, kitten pictures, and her heaps of hair bows and headbands.
I have a silver one downstairs.
She loves kindergarten, coloring, and painting, and sharing her work. All the new and amazing and exciting things she is learning in school this year.
Pumpkins, ghosts, and bats.
On the outside, this little Bakersfield girl is very much a normal 5-year-old. But on the inside, Milan is constantly dealing with the medical issues of a grown woman. Extremely high estrogen levels, ovarian cysts, cramping, and at times, heavy bleeding. Milan's struggles began at age 2.5. She was vacationing with her family in Mexico when her mom noticed breast development in her young daughter.
And within a matter of weeks, she developed pubic hair, body odor, more breast development. in vaginal discharge. So it happened real quick.
Alarmed, her parents took her to doctors in Mexico. They were told Milan was normal and that the discharge was just an infection. But they cut their vacation short, returned home, and local doctors sent her to a specialist at UCLA immediately. Grecia's main concern at that point, would her child be okay?
I didn't know what condition.
So that's kind of wild. When I saw that, I was like totally shocked. Precocious puberty. There's all kinds of different new diagnoses that are coming up. But basically what this comes down to is this little girl has been exposed to something that's causing her body to increase the amount of estrogen that it's producing, hold on to the estrogen, not metabolize, not break it down properly, or some other thing in here, which we'll talk about in a second, xenoestrogens as a potential reality, some sort of toxic exposure that's causing her body's hormone symphony to shift towards that estrogen dominance. But crazy to think that at younger and younger and younger ages, females are starting to go through menstruation, start to go through puberty, when those changes in the human body shouldn't be taking place until significantly later ages. It's pretty wild. So with that being said, what are some of the long-term effects of estrogen dominance in the body? Well, estrogen dominance in the body, especially for females, can cause breast and uterine cancer. For guys, gallbladder problems, thyroid problems for both of us, male and female, yeast overgrowth, osteoporosis, and weaker density of your bones, just to name a few. There's many, many more symptoms, but what it comes down to is too much estrogen over a longer period of time is not ideal. Endocrine system, hormone systems in our body are designed to be in better check and better balance than that. So a quick note about hormone replacement. Hormone replacement therapy is something that has been around for a while. It's the single biggest reduction in breast cancer actually occurred when doctors stopped prescribing hormone replacement therapy. And there's a whole drug that was launched on the market for hormone replacement therapy. If you're old enough, you might remember it. I believe it was called Prempro. Prempro is a hormone replacement therapy drug trial that was prematurely terminated. So this trial involved over 16,000 women aged 50 to 79 who still had their uteruses. The women were given a combination of conjugated estrogens and progestin sold under the brand name Prempro. The women taking this drug showed a significant increase in the risk of invasive breast cancer. As soon as the news surfaced, this company, Wyeth, which produced the drug, sent their spin doctors out to perform damage control. They were very quick to point out that the trial involved the combination product and that no negative conclusions should be drawn about using Premarin, I guess it was Prempro. Their product features conjugated estrogen alone. So this, honestly, guys, for me, it strikes me as odd, considering that the New England Journal of Medicine in December 1975 published Wyeth's findings that Premarin used alone was the cause of 5 to 14-fold increase in endometrial cancer in women. At that time, the spin was that estrogen should not be used unopposed, so we went from estrogen replacement therapy, ERT, to hormone replacement therapy. Anyway, long story short, estrogen replacement therapy was flawed from the outset. It was never able to deliver on the promise of protecting women from ravages of aging, such as defending against heart disease, avoiding osteoporosis, or keeping them from feeling young forever. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, go look up the drug. I believe it was called Premarin. But interesting thing about this is when they stopped prescribing it, it was the single biggest reduction in breast cancer that occurred when they stopped prescribing it. So hormone replacement therapy in and of itself is not necessarily the answer. When you go get tested and you have low estrogen levels or low progesterone levels, the solution typically isn't just to take that synthetic version of a hormone, put it in your body, and hope that it's going to fix it. Because, again, like the symphony, the levels sound like they're low for progesterone. You might in fact have lower blood levels of progesterone, but it doesn't mean that progesterone is the problem. It could be a different breakdown hormone pathway, and I'll show you a synopsis, like an overall 30,000 foot view synopsis of hormone cascade pathways here in just a moment. But here's one of the big problems. We were talking about estrogen dominance, yes? Estrogen dominance in both men and women, and now apparently in kids, is something that's creating some problems. Why is that the case? If your body is producing lower levels of estrogen, how is it possible you could still have estrogen dominance? And to be honest, the simple answer is that there's synthetic chemicals that are getting in our bodies that are called xenoestrogens. So xenoestrogens are a category of endocrine disrupting compounds that are industrially made chemical compounds which disrupt communication within the body's endocrine and hormone producing organs. So cells that rely on estrogen in our body typically have estrogen receptors on the outside of the cell surface that are made to fit estrogen right in the receptor, and then it activates that portion of the cell and then allows the cell to do what it needs to with that estrogen hormone. Unfortunately, these compounds, xenoestrogen, actually fit right in the same receptor site on the outside surface of the cell, and in all actuality, your body then thinks that it's making estrogen, and boom, it uses it, and it causes this communication breakdown problem in the body. With xenoestrogens can be found in multiple different things around the home. Some of them, just to name a few, are coffee. You'll find it in canola oil. You'll find it in commercially raised, not organic grass-raised beef, but commercially raised beef, chicken. It's in some pesticides and herbicides. And fun fact for you, the average American actually eats about 1 pound of pesticides per year. But here's some chemicals that you might recognize the name of: parabens, phthalates, and phenoxyethanol. Interesting. So let's look at a little bit more of these right now. So xenoestrogens. Here's a popular xenoestrogen that you might not be aware of. It's called propylene glycol. Propylene glycol is actually one of the #1 key ingredients in antifreeze. That's what we put in our car. However, antifreeze, primary ingredient propylene glycol, is found in many different skin and hair-based products, including Aveeno lotion, Barbasol shaving cream, Tresemme Naturals shampoo, and Colgate toothpaste. So if you haven't been in the habit of looking at the ingredient list and some of the things that you're putting on the skin and using for natural hair for hair and skincare products, make sure you get in the habit of turning the thing around, looking at the ingredient list, and making sure it doesn't have propylene glycol in there. It doesn't have phthalates, PTHAL is how that's spelled, phthalates. Make sure it doesn't have phenoxyethanol, parabens. And if you're watching right now and you want a list of common xenoestrogens, what the chemical component names of them are, comment in the comment section below, or Stronghold Health, go ahead and private message us, send us a message on Facebook, and let us know you want that. We'll get it sent out to you. I actually have a pretty cool synopsis list for you. It's already prepared. So xenoestrogens is one problem. What's the other problem that's shifting us towards estrogen dominance? It's this process in our body called aromatization. So fat cells in our body actually perform a function called aromatization, which is essentially when fat cell converts free-floating testosterone in your body to estrogen. So if the estrogen pathway isn't working properly, your body will take any available testosterone you have and actually use that for estrogen and convert it. So it's going to shift your balance away from estrogen and it's going to shift your balance towards estrogen and actually pull it away from testosterone. So therefore, you're going to start having lower testosterone levels and specifically more high estrogen levels. So it screws the balance up. If you're a woman, that's going to be bad because it contributes to more estrogen dominance. And obviously, if you're a guy, that's even worse because it's just going to decrease your testosterone levels further, which again, as for us as guys, going to cause fatigue, low sex drive. It's going to cause muscle weakness and decreased strength. It's going to cause depression issues. It's going to cause sleep disturbances, insomnia, and other associated problems. So the solution to this is, if you're exercising, to do exercising that's going to be like high intensity interval training, or something that's going to be a little bit more focused towards burning fat, but ultimately just make sure that you're exercising if you aren't already exercising, because you want to make sure you're decreasing the total amount of fat that's just kind of sitting around. All right, let's talk a little bit about adrenals. So what the heck are adrenal glands? Adrenal glands are sitting right on top of your kidneys, on your flank, on your sides. On top of each of your kidneys, you have an adrenal gland. The adrenal gland itself is what's responsible for the stress response. So a bear comes launching out of the woods, and when you're on a hike and you're like, oh my god, it's a bear, and you freak out and you start running for your life because you don't want to get killed and eaten by a bear, in that split second, without ever thinking about it, you have a chemical response that takes place where your brain talks to your adrenal glands kick out cortisol. Cortisol then causes an increase in blood pressure, an increase in blood sugar levels. It's going to cause your skeletal muscles to fire faster. It's going to shunt blood away from your digestive system, because you don't need to digest food to run from a bear. That entire cascade response happens whether you like it or not. It's a chemical factory. It's innate, it's built in, it's how our body's designed. It's actually a good mechanism to have. The problem is, if we continually fire it over and over and over and over again, eventually over time the adrenal glands are going to start to burn out. Just like we're talking about your thyroid. If you continually release thyroid, eventually your thyroid gets fatigued and you start having hypothyroidism because your thyroid stops working properly. The same thing can happen with your adrenals. You can have adrenal fatigue, so your adrenal glands burn out from all this chronic stress over and over and over and over again, which isn't surprising in the high stress world that a lot of us are living in right now. It can have devastating effects, though, if you have adrenal fatigue. Let's see. Adrenal glands are, I already told you that, adrenal medulla. So the adrenal cortex, there's two parts of the adrenal glands. The adrenal cortex, which is the outside part of it, is going to be responsible for producing hormones that are vital, like cortisol, like I was saying, for the stress response, but bad in high amounts over a longer period of time. Anything that's good can be bad in large quantities. And then the inside part of the adrenals, your adrenal medulla, which is the part that's responsible for producing norepinephrine and adrenaline. Anyway, long story short, adrenal fatigue, not a good thing to have. So the fight or flight response, like we were talking about, it's like the bear popping out of the woods. When that happens with the fight or flight response, and that whole process takes place in the body, you have the elevated blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, elevated heart rate, elevated inflammation, and decreased blood flow to your stomach, your gut, to your digestive system. My question, I guess, for you at this point in time would be, think about how many people you know, or maybe this is you yourself, that have problems on a daily basis because your body's stuck in a fight or flight response. So a fight or flight response because of stress. And I'd say like 90% of the people that I know are stuck in that kind of like continued cycle of fight or flight and the stress response. And the question is, what are most people typically doing about it? And I know the answer that I've seen around is a lot of people are just taking over-the-counter medications, they're taking stimulants, they're relying on coffee, they're relying on chemical intervention to help alter that process and try and save them from that fight or flight response that they're stuck in. Kind of crazy when you think about it. But the answer typically is going to be to get back to the cause. What's causing the constant fight or flight reaction in the body? And that comes down to stress management. So there's another workshop that I had done that's all on stress management. If you want access to it, you can't find it on our Facebook. Again, private message us, send us a Facebook message or a comment in the comment section down below, and we'll link to it. So that gets you a little bit more information on that, because the sooner you can get that under control, the better you're going to be able to ensure that you aren't going to suffer from adrenal burnout or adrenal fatigue down the pipe. Adrenal burnout what that basically looks like is going to be the wired and tired feeling. So here's your adrenal glands, just for a visual, on top of your kidneys. So the wired but tired feeling is going to be like very, very low energy. You're tired, you're lethargic, you don't handle stress very well anymore. You have depression and or anxiety. You have typical craving for salty foods and an overall weakened immune system, but you're having, even though you're low energy and you're tired, you're actually kind of insomniac, like you have a hard time sleeping. So any sleep that you do get, you wake back up and you're still feeling drained, just like super low energy. That's classic symptoms and signs of adrenal burnout or adrenal fatigue. So if that's you, let us know. I've got a couple of supplements that we can recommend that might help you with that. But the absolute best thing you can do is do a complete hormone analysis, complete hormone urinalysis test to figure out where the heck the breakdown is and why your body's having adrenal burnout and fatigue. Basically, it looks like this. Cute dog, but he doesn't look like he's enjoying life anymore. That's what adrenal fatigue looks like. All right, let's talk a little bit about the thyroid real quick. So thyroid can either, and this is true for all of the gland organs in the body, thyroid, adrenal glands, thymus gland, uterus, ovaries, they can go increase in function, they can go decrease in function. So hyper or hypo. For the thyroid, overwhelmingly, many people suffer from a hypothyroidism. It's not functioning properly, it's not producing enough thyroid hormone, which leads to fatigue, increased sensitivity to cold because of poor blood circulation, weight gain, puffy face, thinning hair, depression, short-term memory issues, and memory impairment. So thyroid is the last one that we're talking about. And again, the most common imbalance for thyroid is hypothyroidism. If your immune system is involved with that, it's called Hashimoto's. So if you know anybody that has hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, share this with them so that they can get a little bit more insight and information. Please, please, please hit the share button, hit the like button, get a friend on here, comment, tag them in the comment section. So if you have too much thyroid, the exact opposite of hypothyroidism, when you have hyperthyroidism, it's called Graves' disease. But regardless of the fancy names for it, it comes down to too much or too little at the end of the day. And just like every other disease process in the human body, getting to the cause is going to be the most important thing to help you overcome it. And getting to the cause, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And so if you haven't had testing done, that's honestly the best place that you can start when it comes to this. But if you aren't going to spend the money invest in your health, you aren't going to do the testing just yet, here's 4 quick S's that you can do that might help you with some of the hormone imbalance with estrogen dominance and thyroid problems. Number 1 is going to be stimulants. Number 2 is going to be to address the stress. And number 3 is going to be take care of subluxations. And then number 4 is going to be supplement. So the first S, one of the most common stimulants that many people love is coffee. I hate breaking the news to you. I don't drink coffee. I'm not a coffee guy. Never really have been. I like the smell of coffee, but coffee has caffeine. So if you're going to drink coffee, maybe do decaffeinated would be my encouragement to you. But caffeine hijacks your hormones. See what happens when when you drink coffee, basically coffee goes in your body. The caffeine then hits your adrenal glands. The adrenal glands create norepinephrine and adrenaline response. The adrenaline hit gives you energy and a surge, and you feel great, and you're awake and you're alert. And then the energy surge eventually fades over time, and then you have a crash. And so it leaves you in need of more caffeine or another stimulant for a temporary mood or energy boost. So it's not necessarily the most friendly cycle for you, which is why it does create addictive nature. So my encouragement again is do decaffeinated coffee if you can, or do like an herbal tea that's going to have nootropics in it, something that's going to stimulate the central nervous system, like lion's mane mushroom or cordyceps or reishi mushrooms. So like mushroom blend tea or like a mushroom blended decaffeinated coffee would be the absolute best way to go, because then you're not killing that caffeine response pathway in your body. Anyway, caffeine itself, I already kind of said this, it increases estrogen and cortisol levels, and elevated cortisol levels are actually going to create a pathway that disrupts your thyroid production. And then it actually leads to further adrenal fatigue or adrenal burnout down the road, because the caffeine's firing your adrenal glands off like crazy every time you're drinking it, especially if it's caffeinated. So if you want to heal, you have to do the best you can to kick the habit, or do a horizontal transition where you replace it with something better. For a warm drink, like I was saying, you can try herbal tea. You can do a mushroom nootropic. You can do green tea. Different options. There's a lot of different things that are out there. There's a chicory root based coffee substitute that tastes, in my opinion, just like coffee, but I don't drink coffee a lot, so don't take my word for it. I can't remember why I put that in there, so we're going to skip that. The second S after stimulants was sugar. So the next enemy that we really need to be a little bit more mindful of is sugar. The reality is you can't completely avoid sugar, and you shouldn't completely avoid sugar because your body does need sugar. But sugar in copious and excess amounts is not ideal. Sugar in large quantities are going to lower sex hormone binding globulin, SHBH, or SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, which increases your estrogen floating around in your body. And then that is actually going to cause an insulin resistance, which then increases fat storage. So it's going to increase how much fat cells your body holds on to, which produces more estrogen and therefore more inflammation. So it's a nasty cycle. So it lowers sex hormone binding globulin, increases estrogen floating in your body, causes increased insulin resistance, increases your fat cells, and then produces more estrogen and more inflammation. And in men, it's just going to straight decrease your testosterone. So if you can avoid excess copious amounts of sugar, great. One of the best practices I've been able to convey to patients is read the nutrition label. You want to do less than 5 grams of 5 grams of sugar per serving, if possible, in some of the foods that you're eating, to just cut the large amounts of sugar. And you might be thinking, well, I don't eat a lot of sugar, right? Well, here's water. Water's 0 grams of sugar. What about coconut water? 15 grams of sugar per serving. There's 2 servings in that container. That's 30 grams of sugar. Honest tea, 19 grams of sugar per serving. Horizon chocolate milk, 22 grams of sugar, because it's got lactose in the milk plus the sugar that they add with the syrup for the chocolate syrup. Apple juice, 26 grams of sugar, at least if it doesn't have any added sugars, it's just natural apple, but it's still a lot of sugar to be taking in one serving. And you can see going down the line, the one that actually appears to be the healthiest when you're in the grocery store, the naked juice, is actually 53 grams of sugar. So talk about sugar overdrive. If possible, you want to try and replace sugar in your cooking, your baking, with alternatives like stevia, swerve, xylitol, and then there's others that are out there. Ooh, this is one of my faves. Okay, so basically when it comes down to nutrition, the best thing you can do is Spark always sheds light on controversial topics. So this was an episode where I guess they were in a crisis with the foods that people were eating. They were having too much grain, too much bread. Bread turns to sugar in the body. It created a whole issue that they basically equated to a pandemic. Anyway, long story short, when it comes down to it, you start shifting your perspective. Stop eating a standard American diet and start looking at the things that you are eating. There's simple shifts that you can make in your diet and your nutritional demands that make a pretty big difference in the human body. So hormone rebooting eating plan, just as an example, getting rid of rancid fats. So what they were talking about there is flipping the food pyramid upside down, so you're getting a richer source of healthy types of fats, and getting rid of the rancid fats, like I was talking about canola oil. I can't remember the name of it all the time, but canola oil is a version of trans fat, hydrogenated oils, bad fats in the body. Bad fats in the body create issues with hormones. And so Getting rid of the rancid fats, replacing it with good types of fats like coconut, avocado is a great example of just shifting your perspective a little bit and making simple transitional changes. In order to decrease inflammation and balance hormones in our body, you have to balance your ratio of omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. And so when it comes down to rancid fats or like conventionally raised beef, the fat ratios are all off for the omegas. And if that's something that you want to learn a little bit more about, again, private message us, send us a Facebook message, or put a comment in the comment section below, ask a question. Would love to get you guys some more information on some of this, especially when it comes to omegas. Omega-6 and omega-3 balance is super crucial and important to healthy inflammatory response in the human body. Typically, we're looking for actually twice as much omega-6 as omega-3 for fat sources, which you'll never get from canola or vegetable or corn-based oils, but you can get from coconut, and you can definitely get from green grass-finished beef. It has a great ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. So anyway, moving along. The third S was stress, so doing something to help with really effective stress management. And here's just 2 simple, quick steps that you can do that'll help you, hopefully, have less stress in your life. The number one is be resultless. So the whole concept with this is it's better to be 1 in 20 than 0 in 0. So the guy that sits on the bench doesn't ever get in the game in life, doesn't take a chance, take a risk, and just go for it, never gets in the game, and therefore his track record is 0 wins, 0 losses, which honestly is way worse than going for it, attempting what you're working on 20, 21 times, as many times as you need to, so that you get the 1 win. Because it's better to have 1 win and 20 losses than to not have gotten in the game and not have tried at all. So be resultless. Don't be focused on the result and the specific outcome. Just get out there and do it. Obviously, consider the consequences of not getting in the game and not participating in life. 80% of life is showing up. So the best thing you can do is show up, give it 100%, give it your effort, and then not be focused on a specific outcome, or at least not be married to how exactly it has to turn out, but just get in there and do it. And then the second one is to be timeless. So focus on the present. Don't be driving the car focused, looking in the rearview mirror the entire time about what happened in your past, because you won't see what's in front of you. But then also don't be looking so far in front of you that you can't see what's immediately in front of you in the now when you're driving the car. So the analogy there is just be focused on the present. You're mindful of the past. Every once in a while you're looking at the past. In the rearview mirror, you're looking at your side view mirrors, but you're looking ahead of you as well, so that you can anticipate what's coming, but immediately you're focused on what's right in front of the car. Be present. And then the fourth S is subluxation. So subluxation is when you have a breakdown in the nervous system in the body. So remember in the very beginning we were talking about the symphony, right? And you have the conductor, and the conductor is up there and he's telling the orchestra how to play the instrument, which instruments to play, when they start, when they stop. He's conducting the show. Subluxation is when you have a breakdown between the conductor and the orchestra. So our nervous system is a great example of this. Your brain is what controls every single organ in the human body. So it does it through signals that your pituitary gland is going to give out, your hypothalamus gives out, but it also does it through the nervous system, through your spinal cord, out the nerves, to each of the organs, cell tissues of your body. So your thyroid itself actually is still going to be controlled from nerves that come out of your neck. So there could be a breakdown between your brain and the nerve that controls your thyroid in your neck, but you might never know it because you don't have neck pain. So if you didn't get your neck evaluated, you haven't looked beneath the surface to see if the spine, which protects that part of your nervous system, is functioning properly, you could be having an issue there and not actually know it, which therefore tells you is affecting your thyroid gland and how well it functions, or your thymus gland under your chest plate, which controls your immune system, or your pancreas or your adrenal glands, so on and so forth. So if you haven't been checked for subluxation, gotta go see Batman, Agent of Balance. No, I'm just kidding. But that's pretty cool. I found that on the internet. That's a chiropractic comic. Batman. But you need to go to the chiropractor if you haven't had your power turned on. In other words, you haven't been adjusted and had your spine taken care of for any potential problems that you might have arising in your nervous system, then you definitely need to get that checked out. This is actually just a quick summary of a paper that I was reading recently on motor vehicle accidents, physical trauma in the neck, and how it actually affects the HPA axis, is saying it is also known that individuals with chronic whiplash injuries have negative effects occurring with the HPA, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and the adrenal stress hormone cortisol. Cortisol levels were blunted or low in the morning and then had an altered rhythm and levels later in the day. Basically, what the research article was saying is that there was an issue with cortisol awakening response, which is a specific type of test that you can get done to see if when you wake up in the morning, your cortisol levels are what they're supposed to be at to help wake you up for the day. And for many of us, they actually aren't because of physical trauma we've sustained to our neck. It doesn't have to be a car accident. It could be just a poor curve. You've lost the curve in your neck, and your neck's sitting very straight, which puts stress on the nervous system and then affects cortisol levels. Or it's because of coffee and caffeine and that regular intervention that you're doing first thing in the morning with the coffee that's actually shunting the cortisol awakening response. So again, something that you can get tested if you get the right type of testing done. But that's what we're looking for, is a healthy curve in the neck, nice protected structure of our nervous system instead of it sitting in a straight damaged position like that. So if you haven't been checked for subluxation, got to get checked. Subluxation, by the way, is when there is a breakdown between the brain and the end organs through our nervous system because of misaligned bones in your neck or in the rest of your spine. The misaligned bone creates an interference between the brain and the organ, and then the organ doesn't work the right way. In this case, maybe your adrenal glands. In fact, that's what it looks like when you have poor structure in the neck. Inside on an MRI, it actually creates restriction on the spinal cord. Doesn't look good. Tech neck, big problem right now, especially with all of us working at home. Some typical warning signs of subluxation in the body might be headaches, menstrual imbalance, high blood pressure, depression, insomnia, trouble sleeping, numbness and tingling in your fingers and hands, neck pain, low back pain, acid reflux, dizziness, tiredness, and fatigue. And there's way more, but those are some of the most common warning signs. So we get to the final couple of slides that I'm going to go through here with you. And for the final couple of slides, I guess the question that I'm going to pose to you is, how do you know whether or not your hormones are out of balance? Outside of having some symptoms of tiredness, fatigue, decreased metabolism, altered sex drive, whatever you've got going on, insomnia, inability to sleep, how do you know if your hormones are out of balance? And to be completely honest with you, you don't know, and often we're not necessarily testing the right thing. So for instance, you can go to the doctor, you can go to your primary care physician, they might send you out to a specialist to get lab work done, but when you get the blood test done, they might only come back with the result that says you've got low progesterone. Okay, great. So what's the solution? Or let's back up a second. Is it actually progesterone that's the problem, or is that just the one hormone that they tested? Right? Or it might come back with low estrogen levels or high estrogen levels. But I'm here to tell you that it's not that simple. There's a lot more to it, and there's more stuff that you have to test than just the simple 4 top hormones, right? So is this you? Do you have low thyroid? Do you have Hashimoto's? Do you have adrenal fatigue or adrenal overdrive? Do you have low testosterone? Do you have estrogen levels that are low, or maybe they're high? Same thing with progesterone. Or maybe have you been diagnosed with some of these, but you still don't accept that it's just that simple, because maybe you've been taking synthetic progesterone to fix the low progesterone problem, but you haven't seen any difference in the body. You're still dealing with a lot of the major symptoms, and you feel like it's not providing the solution for you because you feel like maybe you haven't gotten the answer to begin with. If that's you, right now, put your name in the comment section or private message us and ask us for the quiz. First step I would want for you to take is, this is an example of a male hormone quiz. So basically you go through, you fill out the symptoms that you're having. If you're having any symptoms, from 0, you're not having it at all, to 3, it's a major problem that you're dealing with. You go through, you start filling it out. We do a scored summary. You put your height and weight in here, and then we tally it up and we figure out which one of these 4 options do you most likely have an issue with. It's not super specific, but it gives us an idea on which type of testing we might need to do for you to look at a deeper dive to get very, very detailed and very specific to get answers. So that's the first step. And I've also got one for females as well. So there's male and female hormone quiz. So first step is put your name in the comment section. If you're watching this as a replay on the video, call the office or private message Stronghold Health on Facebook and ask for the quiz. The second thing is, when we're done with the quiz, the next step would then be to do a deeper dive. And so one of the tests that we order very, very regularly in the clinic with patients is a 24-hour urinalysis. It's a complete hormone test. And what this is going to test are 3 different estrogens, E1, E2, E3, all of the metabolites, so the breakdown pathways for each of those estrogens. It's going to test hydroxylated and methoxylated estrogens, which is whether or not your body's breaking down and using those estrogen byproducts properly, or if it's metabolizing them, or if it's detoxing and getting rid of the waste products. Methylation capacity with your liver, 5A reductase activity, anabolic and catabolic balance in your body. It's going to test your glucocorticoids, including your cortisol, your progesterone levels, pregnanediol. It does it through the pregnanediol pathway. Your androgens, including DHEA, testosterone, and all of their metabolites as well. And then we even had the option of doing an add-on for some of the gene testing here. MTHFR gene, vitamin D receptor gene, COMT gene, the CY1B1 gene pathway. And let me see here if I can actually pull up what those are just to give you an idea. So the MTHFR is going to be related back to low bone mineral density, fracture risk, potential risk of cancers, low vitamin B levels, folate, risk for cardiovascular disease. The COMT is the catecholomethyltransferase gene. So these are genes, okay? So this is how your body is programmed genetically for these hormones and hormone control. This is going to be related to mood disorders, chronic high levels of stress, increased risk of fracture, high or imbalanced estrogen levels, especially for hydroxyestrogen. VDR, vitamin D receptor. How many of us have been told to take vitamin D? We take the vitamin D, but we're not even sure if we're taking the right amount. So for my wife, this was kind of the scenario. We did her complete hormone testing, and then we added on the gene testing, and we found out that she was heterozygous downregulation of VDR receptor, which means if she was taking 10,000 IUs of vitamin D3 a day, her body would only absorb 50% of it, but we would have never known that if we didn't actually test it. So now she takes twice the amount of vitamin D to make sure she's getting an adequate amount of base level vitamin D levels in the body. Not enough vitamin D can lead to metabolic syndrome, risk of cancer progression, osteopenia, or decreased bone density. And then the C1 or the CY1B1, that's going to be increased cancer in specific populations, exposed to risk of cancers. So this is just going to be a cytochrome pathway that's specific for certain types of cancers. Anyway, with all that being said, the best hormone testing that you can get is hormone testing that's going to include all of these different components. And this is just a sample of what that test might look like. In fact, this is a test summary for a specific patient where I took out their names. You can't see who it is for HIPAA compliancy, but this just goes to show you that it's going to test your catabolic and anabolic hormone pathways. It's not just going to test progesterone and estrogen, but we're going to look at all of the stepwise process for how your body goes through getting to those hormones, making those hormones, using those hormones, getting rid of the waste product for those hormones, so on and so forth. And then this helps you get to the most detailed specificity as to why your body has the hormone imbalance in the first place. And then here's the absolute best part. When it comes to solution for it, instead of taking synthetic over-the-counter drug medication prescription, you're actually going to be able to intervene wherever the breakdown in the step is and take a supplement, a vitamin, that's going to give your body the parts, the component parts that it needs to offset that so it fixes the problem. Absolute best way to do it. It's called functional medicine. You're working with your body's normal functional pathways to ensure that they're doing what they're supposed to produce the overall symphony and response that you should have, which is homeostasis and balance in the body. Get rid of the dis-ease and get back to ease. Get rid of the disease, get rid of the symptoms, get to the root cause and address the root cause properly. So normally this testing is $749. This test does work. If you're watching and you're in a different state, you're in a different city, totally fine. I can drop ship tests to your door. We can do a Zoom consultation together. I can walk you through how to do the complete urinalysis. It's a 24-hour urine collection. If we do the genetic component for an add-on, there's an additional cost for that. But there's a saliva swab that you can do for the genetic part or cortisol testing. I walk you through all of the test instructions. I've already got a couple videos that are filmed on that. And then you take the test. When you're done with it, you drop it at FedEx, and it's prepaid FedEx overnight to the lab company. Lab company is located in Asheville, North Carolina. They do the requisition. It takes about 3 weeks. When we get the results back, I will do a one-on-one Zoom virtual consultation with you. We'll go through the results. And you can rest assured, because it's not just me that's going to be going through the results. We actually have 2 functional medicine doctors and 2 biochemists at the lab that do a panel review of your test results with me. I'm going to go ahead and then go through them with you individually with the solution, the supplemental intervention on what supplements do you need to take, not need to take, how do you offset the breakdown in the pathways to get it back to where it needs to be so that you can get rid of the symptoms and get back to functioning the way that you were designed to. And here's the best part about it. Instead of $749, right now it's only $449. That's the cash fee. We can go through insurance. If we go through insurance, it looks a little bit different. I believe it's about $175 that you'd be paying out of pocket initially. The lab company then takes care of billing it to your insurance. However, I will tell you that only about 5 out of 10 patients have it successfully go through insurance. So this is the best, is to do the $749 discounted right now down to $449 for the pricing. So if this is something that you want to take advantage of, please, I encourage you, don't wait. Go ahead and comment in the comment section below. Send us a private message. Call our office at 615-730-8131. Stronghold Health. Go to www.strongholdhealth.com. And then you can schedule an appointment with us if you're local in the Nashville area. If you're not, we can do, again, we can do this all virtual. I can send you the test kit. You can take the test requisition right from home, do a urinalysis, put it in the cup, send it off to the lab company, and we can get you help. We can help you figure out where the imbalance is and what we need to do to get it all under control when it comes to your hormones. So I hope that this information has been helpful for you when it comes down to, oh, holy hormones. And again, if you enjoyed watching this and you have a friend or a family member who is personally going through some hormone issues right now, please reach out to them. You could be their lifeline. You could help them by just passing the information on to them. And if it's something they decide they want to take action on, great. But at least you did your service by sharing it with them because you care about them. And then hopefully at the end of the day, if you or the person that you shared it with was able to get the help that they needed just from information, great. And then we can all look like this 1950s power women couple or women trio where we're on the beach and we're happy and we're healthy because our hormones are imbalanced. I mean, our hormones are balanced. Well, tongue twisters. Thanks to Oh Holy Hormones. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I hope to hear from you soon. This is Dr. Dave with Stronghold Health. I really enjoyed sharing this information with you, and I look forward to the next virtual webinar that we get to do.